I'm certainly not the only one who's been asked this question, but I'm among those who've been asked this question. People who I speak with often are blessed with me being able to practice what I call the gift of bibliography. That is, I often find myself listening to people and understanding what their situation is and saying, you really ought to read this book. And people get the idea because of that, because I do a weekly book review segment for the Jesus Changes Everything podcast. They recognize the truth that I do read quite a bit. And they generally affirm the value and the virtue of reading. And so they want to know, where do you find the time to read? Or so you read these books, and I'm so grateful that you tell me about them, but where do you find the time to read? Well, that's what I want to answer in this brief 5-minute podcast. The answer to the question is this: I find it right in front of me, just like everybody else. There's no secret cache of time somewhere that I have access to. I don't have a vault where I have a formula to get into it and pull out extra time. I have 24 hours in my day just like everyone else. The question ultimately becomes a question of priorities. Now, I realize that also in the things that I choose not to do. As I'm talking to you right now, I'm looking at the top of several bookshelves filled with books, most of which I've read here in my study, but resting there as a kind of decoration is my electric guitar. And I used to say all the time, boy, I'd give anything to be able to play the guitar. I really want to be able to play the guitar. That's why my wife got me this electric guitar. I really want to play the electric guitar. I do. And then I realized, there's one thing I'm not willing to do. I'm not willing to practice and study and learn. So maybe it's really not that much of a priority. And so when people ask me about how do you find time to read, the simple answer is I prioritize it. It matters to me. Now, there are various and sundry tricks for increasing our sufficiency, or not sufficiency, our efficiency, that we can multitask or find ways to save time on things that mean less to us. One of the things that I have done, in fact, along those lines, is a lot of what I read for pleasure. So I'm not devoting laborious time. If I can get to the place where, hey, at the end of the day, I've done my work, I'm worn out, all I want is to rest, and I can pick up a book and have it bless me and teach me something, then terrific. I can do two things at once. That's a kind of efficiency. Right here to my right is one of those kinds of books, actually a couple of those kinds of books. There's a book called In the Garden of Beasts by Eric Larson. Now, I'm not going to suggest that this changed my life in any way, shape, or form, or that it's just an amazing, valuable book. But it is a historical book. It's a story about the Chicago World's Fair and everything that went into it, and America's first serial killer, and how those two things interact. And, it was a fun, relaxing, restful read, but I also learned things. So that's part of the equation, and something that, again, in those books that I recommend, I'm trying to recommend books that are more than simply pulp kind of, distraction, literary distraction. Trying to recommend mostly books that are fruitful and helpful. That's another thing, though, that's another efficiency question. Take every chance you get. If you know you're going to be waiting somewhere, bring a book. If you got to go to the doctor, bring a book. If you're going to be waiting to pick someone up, bring a book. If you're going to the airport, bring a book. It's a great way. It's such a good investment. I know we like television. I like television too, but I'm not going to bring a television with me. A book, that I'll bring with me. So, for what it's worth, again, I don't have any extra time. It just matters to me, and I find pleasure in doing it. If you do the same, you'll have time to read too.